In school, you'd be familiar with this tool. This is the jack plane, used for basically planing timber down. Some carpenters will still use them for getting framing level, doors, windows, that sort of stuff. However, in construction, because time is money, I guess, there's this tool which you might end up seeing on site as well. This is known as an electric plane or an electric hand plane because it's handheld, and it does the same job as this tool, though in a more mechanical and faster fashion. It operates by having a set of spinning blades here. They will spin in a rotation towards the front of the tool, and so as you're passing the tool across the timber, it's slicing it as it goes through. Spins at a very high rotation, and it is quite a loud tool. Common use for this on a construction site is trimming of doors to make them fit inside door frames. You could do it with a jack plane, but if you're just trying to get an even 1 to 2 millimeters off a door just to get it to fit the door in properly, this is the tool that most carpenters will go for. Before using a tool like this, there's several pieces of PPE that you need to make sure you've got. One of them is protective boots. You need to make sure that you're wearing at a bare minimum safety glasses. A face shield is even better because it covers all of your face. Because of the amount of dust that gets thrown up by these, dust mask is a must when you're using this. Because it is loud, you'd want to have hearing protection of some sort. Now, you know that I wear those little earplugs. There's also these, or the big earmuffs, something to protect your hearing while you're using a machine like this. Pre-operational checks on this before you ever use it. You want to make sure you actually know where the switch is. It's just like a lot of power tools, the switch is here. They actually do have a safety lock on here, so this needs to be pressed in before you can pull the trigger. Meant to be operated by your thumb and forefinger. If you don't put your thumb on it, it's not going to operate. It's basically a safety feature, so if you're holding it, you're not going to accidentally set it off. One of the other things you need to check is your cord. You need to have a close inspection of the cord to make sure there's no cuts or nicks, and especially no frayed wires or bare wires. If there's anything like that, or the plug is damaged, you do not use this tool. Because it's a portable tool, that's one thing you just don't want to do. There is a good chance that this could get damaged in use if you're not aware of where this cord is, because the spinning blade will go across this cord really quickly. That's another reason why you need to be really aware of what you're doing. The depth, variably adjusted. You'll see a little dial on the front here. There's a little arrow on the front of the handle here, and wherever that's pointing, that's the depth of your cut. So at the moment I've got it set to 0, and what this does is raise and lower this front plate. So at the moment it shouldn't take a cut if I use it. If I were to turn it until I get to there, that's 0.5 millimeter. So that has raised this up to be 0.5 millimeter higher than this, the base sole plate. The blade is set to the same height as this. So if I was to now use this, if I push forward, I'm now hitting the back plate, so it's not going anywhere. It's going to be hitting the blade. So if I pull the trigger, that blade is going to follow this front plate and trim this off, if I keep the pressure down on the front plate, to 0.5 millimeter down. Before you actually operate it too, plug it in, start it up before you get it onto the timber, and just listen to it to make sure that it's not making any strange noises that are of concern. I've now plugged this in. I'll just get my hearing protection, dust mask first, and my safety glasses. And now I'm just going to have a listen to it to see what it sounds like. I'll pull in the button, pull the trigger. Now, this has a weird sound to it, and I actually know what it is. I actually have some dust caught in my bearing, so I do need to service this. I haven't used it for quite a while, but I'm just going to do one cut at a 1/2 mil thickness so I can show you the process of it. They do throw all the chips out of this side of the machine. If you are able to hook up dust extraction to this, you definitely do. Most of the time these get used outside on site. If they're used inside a house, it's usually a new build house that still has debris everywhere, so they'll let the shavings fly out and then they'll clean them up later. I've actually set up a big piece of board just here to block the shavings from going all over my workshop, and then I'll just be able to clean up the bench. But I'm just going to do one pass so you can see how it works. I'm going to make sure that the cord is out of the way behind me. Sitting on the front of the timber, I'll pull the trigger and just do one pass. And that's just done one nice clean cut. Still looks dark at the moment because it wasn't a very deep cut, but it's definitely a lot smoother than it was before. I'll do one more. So again, just a very light cut. Because you can adjust the cut, you need to be careful that you don't try and take off too much. Well, I would say it's safe to say you could go to a 1 mil depth quite safely. If you do try and take off too much of a cut at once, especially if the thing that you're cutting is wider than the actual plane, you will get grooving in your timber, which you want to try and avoid. But because they're generally used for doing the sides of doors, for trimming off the bottom or trimming the sides of doors to make them fit in door jambs, it's the ideal tool. Those are usually about 35 to 40 mil wide. The width of this is, actually tells me on the back, it's an 82 mil wide cut. So perfect for going along the base or the sides of doors for trimming them to fit. So just a quick recap of all those facts. It's known as a power plane or a power planer or a handheld power planer. Depth adjustment is on the front, and when you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're not trying to take off too much of a cut at once. Pre-operational checks, make sure you know where the trigger is, make sure it doesn't sound too bad. You can check the blades to make sure there's no nicks or cuts in the blades. Obviously don't do that while it's plugged in. So I've got the blades on this a little bit blunt, but they're clean, they're not chipped. Check your cords and your plug for any damage. If there's any damage to it, do not use the tool. And the PPE that you would use is goggles, dust mask, hearing protection, safety boots. If you've got a face shield, that's better than goggles. And make sure you're wearing clothes that you don't mind if they get dirty. Things that aren't too loose though, so they don't get caught into the machine.